Good afternoon, Sheriff Humphries. Can you hear me okay?
Yes, Judge, I can.
Okay, thank you. I wanted to make sure you were properly connected. So, Mr. Wood, you may go ahead and call your first witness then.
And the state calls Sheriff Len Humphries.
All right, Mr. Humphries, Sheriff Humphries, if you'd please raise your right hand, I'll have the clerk administer the oath.
You solemnly swear or affirm the testimony you will give in the pending cause will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth. So help you God.
I do.
Thank you. You can lower your hand, and counsel, you can inquire.
Thank you. Can you state your name for the record?
My name is Len Humphries,
Can you spell your last name for the record?
Humphries.
All right. And you said sheriff. Can you give us a little more background on that?
I am the Fremont County Sheriff. This is my 13th year as sheriff here in Fremont County.
Okay. So 13 years as sheriff in Fremont County. How long have you been involved in law enforcement?
Went to work here full time in 1988.
Okay. Today, what I need to ask you about, Sheriff, I want to talk about some of your responsibilities as it relates to the district court. Are you responsible for any actions connected to the district court proceedings and jury trials in your role as sheriff?
Yes, we're responsible for the security of the courts. We provide the bailiff services, security for the courthouse. We run the entries where people go through the magnetometers to make sure that there's no weapons. We're responsible for making sure that defendants are transported to and from court in a safe manner. We are also responsible for making sure the juries are safe, and witnesses, that they are taken care of. We provide all of those services through the sheriff's office.
And Judge, in objection to where we may be going, I am concerned that the testimony is going to be focusing more on Mr. Wood's motion to impanel a jury than it is to address any concerns he may have about the change of venue. So I guess in the form of an objection, I'm deeply concerned that we're addressing the other issue and not the issue of how this affects a change of venue.
Well, there's been no question relating to that at this point, so that's premature, but I'll keep that in mind.
Thank you. And Your Honor, I would just note the state hasn't filed a motion to impanel a jury. So Sheriff Humphries, thank you for going over that. Are you also, you said you're responsible for the defendant's security. Are you responsible for housing the defendants?
Yes, we are.
Okay. And are you familiar with the case of the cases of Chad Daybell and Lori Vallow?
Yes, I am.
And are those defendants under your care and custody?
Chad Daybell in my jail here in Fremont County. Lori is in the Madison County Jail, who contracts with us to house our female inmates.
Okay, thank you. Now, the responsibility to cover court proceedings on crimes occurring in Madison County, does that responsibility exist wherever the case itself goes to trial?
I'm not sure I understand your question.
Okay, I'll rephrase it. I think I said Madison County, I meant Fremont County. So I apologize. If a case is a Fremont County case and a change of venue takes place and that a case is heard elsewhere, do you still maintain the responsibility, the same responsibilities that you would maintain as if it were in Fremont County?
I believe that is the case, either by providing the staff to take care of it or contracting with the host county, wherever that may be.
Okay. Now, do you have a detectives division?
I'm sorry, once more?
Does the Fremont County Sheriff's Office have a detectives division?
Yes, I have 3.
Okay. And are you aware if they've been involved in the case involving Chad Daybell and Lori Vallow?
Yes, they have been involved.
Okay. I want to talk to you about kind of the monetary and manpower costs that arise if they have to travel outside of Fremont County.
Judge, I can object at this point. We're going into the motion of sequestering a jury and the costs that are associated with that. Mr. Wood can shake his head all he wants, but this is a backdoor way to address issues that I'm not prepared to address in terms of fixed costs. If the court's going to allow Mr. Wood to go into this avenue, then I want to be able to question this witness about all of the costs that are associated with bringing a jury from another county or otherwise, because that's exactly what he's trying to do here.
Well, it's overruled at this point. We'll see where the testimony goes on the issue. Of course, the matter before the court today is whether or not venue should be changed, meaning transfer the location of the trial, and I find this to be relevant testimony, so that's overruled. You can continue, Mr. Wood.
Thank you. If your detectives are subpoenaed to testify outside of your county, what are some of the costs that are associated with complying with that subpoena?
Judge, again, I'm going to renew my objection. This goes to the sequestering a jury and cost as it relates to that.
All right.
Your Honor, I'm not talking about
Third
sequestering
time,
a jury.
counsel. Yeah, I'm overruling the objection for a third time, Mr. Pryor. This is just in question as it relates to possible change of venue. So continue, Mr. Wood.
Thank you. Sheriff, do you recall the question, or do I need to ask it again?
As I recall, the question was the cost involved when deputies are subpoenaed outside of the county. Those costs would be travel costs, of course, per diem for meals, lodging, overtime costs, possibly. The additional cost of having the deputies outside of the county means that the calls and work that they would normally be doing, I would have to have covered by other officers or have that work delayed until somebody was clear and able to take care of it.
Okay, so it's your testimony that if you had multiple detectives subpoenaed outside your county for a trial, and especially a lengthy trial, could that cause manpower issues for Fremont County detectives or Fremont County Sheriff's Office?
Yes, it would.
Okay. And is it fair to say that those detectives have more cases than the Vallow Daybell case?
Yes, that is fair.
Yeah. Now, at this time, can you put a dollar amount on how much it will cost Fremont County if your detectives are subpoenaed to testify outside of Fremont County?
Excuse me, Your Honor, I'm getting terrible feedback. I can't.
I'm hearing it too.
Yeah, so am I. I'm not sure where that would be coming from. Maybe Sheriff Humphries' microphone. I'm not sure.
I believe this is from Mr. Wood.
Yeah, it seems to be happening when I'm speaking part of the time.
Okay, hopefully we can figure out where that's coming from. I wasn't doing it before lunch, so I'm not sure why it would be doing it now.
Okay. Sheriff, do you need me to ask that question again?
Yes, please.
The question was, at this time, can you put a dollar amount on how much it will cost Fremont County if your detectives have to travel outside of Fremont County for if they're subpoenaed to testify at a trial?
There's no way that I could estimate what those costs would be without knowing where the trial might be held or how long the trial might last.
Okay. We've talked about your detectives being subpoenaed and what that would do to the detectives department. What are some other responsibilities you may have to provide in another county if a trial is moved?
I anticipate that the same costs would apply as far as providing security, providing transportation, providing housing for employees as well as jurors, things like that.
Okay. Is it your opinion that trying these cases in Fremont County would be more economical for the Fremont County Sheriff's Department than having it tried in another county?
Judge, I'm going to object at this point. There hasn't been sufficient foundation to suggest. In fact, this witness said that without sitting down and knowing exactly where it would go, he can't make a determination of what the cost would be. So to allow him to speculate would be completely improper. And at this point, allowing this sheriff to make an assessment without knowing where the county that this thing will be moved to, or the additional costs that might be incurred. And again, I'll renew my objection that this actually goes to Mr. Wood's sequestration of a jury in another county. So if Mr. Humphries wants to come back and talk then, great. But at this point, allowing him to offer an opinion is highly improper.
Mr. Wood?
Your Honor, I think that the sheriff, first, we're not talking about sequestering a jury right now. That's completely separate than a change of venue and the costs that might be associated with it. In terms of what he can testify to, we've already established that, yes, he cannot give an exact dollar amount. However, I do think as the sheriff, he is qualified to testify about the extra expenses of providing these services outside of his own county.
And Judge, actually, this sheriff mentioned the cost of housing a jury. So he brought it up in his case in chief testimony. So again, there's been no specifics, and basically you're going to elicit an opinion from a guy whose qualifications are he's the sheriff without any factual basis for what that opinion is based on.
All right, well, I can consider the testimony for the weight of what it's worth based on the foundation, but I do find that under both Criminal Rule 21 and Title 19, Chapter 18, which discusses removal of an action before trial, that cost can be a consideration, so I do find it's relevant, and I'll overrule the objection so you can answer, Sheriff Humphries.
Would you repeat the question, please?
Yes, is it your opinion that trying the Chad Daybell case in Fremont County would be more economical for the Sheriff's Department than having it tried in another county?
I do believe it would be more economical to be tried here, yes.
And why is that?
We don't have the travel costs involved. We don't have the issues of providing services in a trial outside of the county, and also maintaining services that go on while this trial is going, the other services, the other duties that need to be carried out on a day-to-day basis.
Okay. And so just one last question. Do your duties in Fremont County cease if you have to provide those services in another county as well?
They do not cease. Those services still need to be provided here.
Okay. That's all the state has at this time, Your Honor.
All right, thank you, Mr. Pryor. Cross-examination.
And Sheriff Humphries, could you tell me how many employees you have within the Sheriff Department who are deputized?
Deputized, I have approximately 21 officers right now.
How many of them are involved in the Daybell case?
At least 3 that have been involved in the investigation.
So obviously you understand and would agree with me that you obviously don't want those 3 deputies who are involved in the Daybell case to perform the functions within the department. Would that be fair? In regards to security, in regards to transporting Mr. Daybell or otherwise, right?
So the 2 of those are detectives, and the 3rd is my patrol lieutenant, who was a prior detective and was very involved with this case.
All right, so the question, and if you would answer it, is simply that we don't want those 3 deputies involved in the day-to-day process of such as transporting witnesses, obviously guarding Mr. Daybell, because the potential for some sort of conflict arises at that point, right?
Yes, that's correct.
So we're down to approximately 17 or 18 deputies, correct?
Yes.
And how many deputies does it require you to maintain the jail on a daily basis?
I have 2 deputies on duty at all times in the jail.
Okay, and for how many in a given shift of 24 hours?
That would be 4 and 5 with the supervisor.
And it requires all 17 to provide appropriate supervision, or are you short manned within the sheriff's department in the jail?
No, we are fully staffed at this time.
Okay, so the question then would be, obviously, if anybody has any connection or any sort of link to the Daybell case, you obviously want to exclude them as part of the as part of participating in the day-to-day activities of dealing with jurors, dealing with witnesses, and that sort of thing, correct?
Yes,
And it would be highly inappropriate for someone who has some sort of involvement, even a minimal amount of involvement, to allow themselves to inject themselves in the case, right?
correct.
Objection goes beyond the scope.
Well, Judge, he's talking, thank you. So, Sheriff Humphries, I do have a question for you. I'm looking at a June 11th of 2020 posting on your Facebook account. And on the Facebook account, it shows you retweeting pictures of a fence, some posters of JJ and Tylee. It looks like some pictures of a vigil, and there's some
Objection beyond the scope of the direct.
Judge, it goes to whether or not there's involvement by a police officer involved in this case. I have information that this officer is using his private Facebook account to make postings about this case, and further, that Mr. Wood is giving the thumbs up on these accounts.
So,
Well,
objection
I
relevant.
think it's relevant.
Okay, the issue, underlying issue on change of venue is potential pretrial publicity or bias or prejudice that's come about to potential jurors because of that. And so as it goes to the underlying issue, I will allow for the line of questioning. But Mr. Pryor, I admonish you as previously, if it gets into anything that's inflammatory, I want to take that up outside of the live stream.
Okay, and I'm going to refrain from getting into terrible specifics about some of the things that you post. But Sheriff Humphries, quite frankly, how many times on your personal Facebook account did you post information or pictures about Chad Daybell or Lori Vallow?
I don't know what you're looking at.
I don't care what I'm looking at. I'm asking you how many times you posted these things on your Facebook account.
Objection
How many?
argumentative.
That is argumentative, Mr. Pryor. Allow an opportunity to respond before you just jump in like that. So Sheriff Humphries, if you'd respond and further elicit the question of when you said you don't know what he's talking about, what do you mean by that?
I don't recall having posted or forwarded anything showing that on my Facebook account.
Okay, so you have never posted anything on a Facebook account that shows Len Humphries?
Objection, he's
In regards
misstating
to
the testimony.
and if I could finish, Mr. Wood, in regards to the Daybell and Vallow case, is that your testimony, Sheriff?
I don't,
Objection asked and answered.
He hasn't
Overruled.
answered.
Go ahead and answer, Sheriff.
I don't recall having posted a forward that you have described.
Okay. So do you have access to your Facebook account, and have you deleted anything since June 11th of 2020? Because I'm looking at a Facebook posting with your name on it, dated June 11th of 2020, and it's your picture, and it's obvious that there are images on there that are regarding the Daybell case. Do you
And I'm going
dispute?
to,
If I could finish, Mr. Wood, are you
I'll let you
disputing
finish.
that took place?
Your Honor, I'm going to object to the form of the question. I'm going to ask that we go into a breakout room, that Mr. Humphries be shown this exhibit rather than be browbeaten about something that he doesn't know what Mr. Pryor's talking about.
Do you have a copy of the posting you're concerned about, Mr. Pryor?
I have a copy of several postings, Judge, and if you want to go into a breakout room and have a shared screen, we can discuss all of them.
Well, I think that is appropriate for him to be able to
Okay.
view those versus testifying about them. So
Okay.
in order to avoid inflammatory material being broadcast in this proceeding, we still will be on the record. The court will consider sealing portions of the record if necessary. I'll conduct the further inquiry of the witness in regards to these Facebook posts in the breakout session, which will be still on the record with the court reporter. So Madam Clerk, if you'd set up the breakout room, we'll do that. All right, hopefully the feedback issue's resolved. You just want to say something, Mr. Wood, to test that out?
Checking. I'm not hearing any feedback now.
Yeah, I think it's better. So thanks for doing that. All right, at this point, Mr. Pryor, then you can continue your cross-examination of Sheriff Humphries.
And Sheriff Humphries, after we had an opportunity to go in the break room and you had a look at the Facebook posting, you will acknowledge that on your personal Facebook account on June 11th of 2020, you posted images and a story about the Chad Daybell, Lori Vallow case. Is that true?
I did on that date, yes.
Okay. Do you have any recollection, sir, of any other dates that you may have put on your personal Facebook account, images or stories about Chad Daybell and Lori Vallow?
I do not have any recollection of any others.
Is it possible there are others out there?
I don't believe so. I didn't remember having done this one, but I recognize it when I.
And this wasn't on the sheriff's website that this was posted on Facebook, was it?
That's correct.
This was on your personal website, correct? A personal Facebook account, correct?
That's correct.
How many followers do you have, sir?
I have no idea.
Okay, thousands?
I don't think so.
Okay, but you would agree with me as the sheriff of Fremont County, you have probably a significant following within the confines of Fremont County. Would you not agree with that?
Objection calls for speculation.
It calls for him to answer a question about his following in Fremont County.
The objection's overruled. And counsel, for both of you, if you make an objection, give me an opportunity to respond first. I may make a ruling without jumping in to counter that, or I may ask for additional input. So with that in mind, the objection's overruled. You can answer, Sheriff Humphries.
I don't know how many people follow my Facebook page.
Okay. Well, you agree with me that you know how Facebook works. You send an image out to the people who follow you. And not only does it go to the people that follow you, it goes to the people that are on their accounts as well. Does it not?
I couldn't answer as to how Facebook functions that way.
Are you aware that you and Mr. Wood are friends on Facebook?
I was not aware of that, no.
Okay. Do you dispute that you and Mr. Wood are friends on Facebook?
I don't know who all is listed as friends on my Facebook page. I don't spend very much time on there.
But you would agree with me that a sheriff who's involved in one of the biggest cases in the country on his personal Facebook account starts posting images as it relates to an investigation in his county. At the least, you would call that questionable conduct, wouldn't you, sir?
Objection calls for speculation.
Overruled on those grounds.
You would call that questionable conduct, wouldn't you, sir?
Objection argumentative.
Judge, you already ruled on it.
Well, that's sustained. It is argumentative.
Okay.
The questionable conduct also does not provide any guidance for the court.
Okay. So is it your position, Sheriff Humphries, that since you did do some postings and have commented on the Daybell case on your personal account, that you should be excluded in participating decisions regarding Chad Daybell and his trial?
I make very few decisions regarding his trial.
Well, you posted something on your personal Facebook account about the case, sir, and you acknowledge that you did it. And at this point, you're telling me there's nothing else out there. That's yet to be seen. But at this point, don't you find it inappropriate that a sheriff investigating a criminal case of some notoriety is putting personal postings about the case on his Facebook to some of his friends within Fremont County? You don't see that as a problem, sir?
Objection relevance beyond the scope improper arguments. Argumentative.
Judge, it's actually proper. It goes to bias of this sheriff. He's posting things on his Facebook account and he's sitting there and saying, well, go ahead, Judge, I'm sorry.
Well, law enforcement typically can be biased when they're investigating cases. That's not grounds for this line of questioning. He's a law enforcement officer. It's a personal account. It wasn't posted on the sheriff's official website. The impact that may have on the issue of change of venue is all that the court's concerned about at this point. And I do find the line of questioning improper at this point, and I'm sustaining that objection by Mr. Wood. If you want to get to the relevance of how many people this may have affected in a potential jury pool, that's what the court's concerned with today, Mr. Pryor.
Right. And that's where I'm going, Judge, is that in Fremont County, you would agree with me, Sheriff Humphries, that Fremont County is a relatively rural county. Would you agree with that?
That's correct.
And you would agree with me that there's been a significant, in fact, a great amount of press coverage as it relates to this case, correct?
There has been.
And you would agree with me that the press coverage in Fremont County alone has been saturated with a variety of photos, videos, stories from East Idaho News and others, correct?
Numerous outlets.
Right. And you would agree in this small rural community with that amount of significant press coverage and a sheriff who's the county sheriff in that, you don't think that you posting things about the Vallow Daybell case has an impact on some of the citizens of Fremont County, Sheriff?
I don't know what impact would be I do not know what impact that would have.
Okay. But you would agree there'd be an impact, right?
There could be.
Okay. And you would agree that it was probably a bad choice to post things about Chad Daybell and Lori Vallow on your Facebook account. You'd agree with that, right?
I do agree with that.
Okay. So in other words, you were at least, and Sheriff, I don't want to berate you and beat you up, but it's not the point here. But what I'm concerned about is that Mr. Vallow or Miss Vallow and Mr. Daybell get a fair opportunity. And you would agree with me that the amount of publicity has been significant. And as the sheriff of this county, contributing to that, however it's gauged, only adds to the media attention and the postings that are increasing the amount of attention brought to this case in Fremont County. You'd agree with that, right?
Objection calls for speculation.
Overruled.
You would agree with that, Sheriff, correct?
I should not have done it. Yeah, correct.
Okay. And in all likelihood, your posting could have been a factor in at least swaying some people in Fremont County. We don't know how significant. It could be greatly significant, or it could be de minimis. You'd agree with that, right?
Objection calls for speculation.
That's sustained.
Okay. But obviously there was an impact by your actions by putting that on your Facebook account, right?
Objection calls for speculation.
Well, it's asked and answered. So move on to another question, Mr. Pryor.
No, I think that's it, Judge. I'm fine. Thank you.
No more questions for the
No
witness?
more
then?
questions, Judge. Thank you.
All right, thank you. That'll conclude the cross-examination. Any redirect, Mr. Wood?
Just one moment, Your Honor. Just one. Sheriff Humphries, in the post that you saw, did you mention Lori Daybell or Chad Daybell?
I forwarded a post that I saw that
Well, just answer the question. Did you use the names Lori Daybell or Chad Daybell?
no.
Okay, that's all I have, Your Honor.
All right. And with that, that'll conclude the testimony of Sheriff Humphries. Thanks for your appearance.